Am I starting this or what?
Well, we're live now. Hey,
Oh,
everybody,
crap.
welcome. Welcome to the Back to Red podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Tim.
And I'm Nobe.
How are you this week, Nobe?
I'm fine. I have to finish my supper. I hope no one's all upset about it, but I had a work meeting just before this and I didn't have time. Sorry.
How was that meeting?
Boring.
What?
It was boring stuff. I mean, just regular common sense stuff.
I thought you were done with that place.
I'm pretty close. I'm in the process of... We get a bonus check at the end of the year, so I'm kind of waiting for that. That's in the middle of next month. But I've been... Oh, you still have your Starbucks cup?
Oh. That's funny. That's died down, huh?
Yeah, well, France probably got everybody going on that one.
Yeah. Oh, we'll talk about France later. So you're done with that, you're saying?
Starbucks?
Huh? No. Your job. We were talking about it, and then I really interrupted you.
Oh,
to show you my gimmick.
I'm pretty much done with it. I mean, I'm so much happier subbing again. It's not even a contest.
Yeah. Sweet. So you started subbing then officially?
Yeah, I had the easiest gig of my life today.
Yeah.
I took a band class in high school.
Yeah.
It pretty much is just students practicing. So they say one period, 3 kids would come in and each practice their instrument for 15 minutes in a soundproof booth.
Sweet.
I'd write their names down, they'd leave, and that was it. That's all I did all day. So I got to read, prepare for tonight. The thing with subbing is I got a lot more chances to prepare for this stuff now. You know what I'm saying? Where I wasn't getting any chance for that.
Yeah.
And then I have a buddy who wrote a book. And he sent me the book, and I've been kind of editing it for him. Really cool book. It's on iBooks, and it's interactive.
I think we talked about this a little last week, right?
It's kind of cool. The more I'm reading about it, it's really good.
Yeah.
It depends where we're all at, because it's really talking about our relationship with God and how to foster our spiritual formation. So if you're like, I don't give a crap about that, you're not going to like it, but there's really good, and it gives examples of things that you can do, like retreats and stuff like that to help. It's very interactive.
What do you mean? Yeah. What do you mean by interactive? It just has exercises you can do?
Exercises you can do. You remember some of those worship things I used to do at Watermarks where I'd put painting, you could paint on canvas and stuff. It's a lot of that and gives you cool ideas.
Yeah. It's those type of things that make introverts have heart attacks.
Well, not necessarily, because there's a lot of silence and solitude in those too, and reflecting and stuff like that. Some of them could make an introvert probably uncomfortable, but I mean, when we did you like the service we did when we were blowing out the candles? That wasn't too extroverted.
Well, I remember the one that we did in the karate studio.
Oh yeah.
Remember where you chopped those boards in half and you said, "This is what I feel about Satan," and then everybody held boards up and you cut them in half.
We did that.
No,
I don't even remember that.
That would have been sweet though. A Satan breaking station.
Well, I remember when I did the Good Friday service and I had them carry in a fake body. Do you remember that one? Yep. And people freaked about that one.
That was actually pretty cool. I like that. It didn't leave you with the happy, fluffy feeling, but. And then I think didn't Yia or somebody hide underneath the sheet and then jumped up at the last second.
Afterwards, scared the crap out of someone. It was awesome.
Out of Brian, right?
Yeah. I think I went, "Hey Brian, we got to go." No, Tim Hable went on. TJ Hable went under there.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I mean, if it was Yia, we would have known because he's 1,000 pounds. But TJ Hable is under there. I said, "Hey Brian, help me get the body." And then he moved. We had taken the dummy out. It was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty classic. Yeah, so we met a really kind of cool couple down here. I've been wanting to brew beer for a while. Like Vanessa bought me a brewing kit, and it's pretty much complete. I mean, you can brew beer from it, but that was like it's probably 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I still have the kit, and I never got around to doing it because my excuse was I never had like the equipment I wanted to do it correctly. So on Monday nights, we go out to a brewery here in St. Pete Brewing Company. It's a good original name for this area.
Yeah.
And we met some of the people there. They're totally really, really cool people, but they brew a lot. Like they actually will go, like they brew, I think like once a week or so, and they actually go through and brew at all these big brewing companies. So at any rate, we're going to meet up this week on Sunday and brew my first batch of beer.
That'll be fun.
And they have all the equipment and everything else, so I don't have to mess with that. So yeah, I'm looking for that. Both Ness and I are going. So they're a couple and they do it together. So it's kind of neat. More excuses for Ness to start liking beer a little bit more.
Yeah, my wife and I would hate it. Neither one of us really like beer.
Well, you like the light, nasty stuff, like the beer flavored Kool-Aid.
I don't mind beer occasionally. It's not my first choice, though.
Yeah.
I hate the dark stuff. I don't know how you drink the dark stuff. That stuff's nasty.
That's funny because Ness doesn't really like beer, but her favorite is stout, which is a dark beer or whatever. Yeah, come on now. Yeah, so I'm totally excited about that, and I'll tell you about how much I failed at it, or I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. I mean, he's just going to tell me what to do, and he's done it a bunch of times. So, and then about 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, I'll be able to sample the goodness.
Nice. Really? It takes that long, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Fermenting process or whatever?
Yep. There's actually quite a bit that goes into it. I wonder, like when you look at the process, I almost wonder how they would have done it back in the day. They didn't sanitize those cow barrels before they boiled it in that nasty
back in the day, I
don't
think they gave a crap.
Yeah, but they still had beer, right?
Right.
Maybe it was just really, really, really bad beer.
I don't think they cared.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we didn't have hand sanitizer, and look, I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? I'm still alive. I drank out of the hose. Oh my gosh, God forbid I drank out of the hose.
Directly out of the hose?
The hose outside. That's terrible. The rust.
You went swimming in lakes?
Yeah. Maybe even peed in them along with everyone else in there.
I used to know. I think I heard people that think people are crazy for swimming in lakes. Like that's pretty much the sewer, you know. But yeah, we used to swim in lakes all the time when we were kids.
Did you hear me just burp?
Well,
I just burped, but I shut it off. I was thinking, so I shut off the mic. I'm done eating now, by the way. I'm sorry. I got like a little mini sub.
Yeah.
And
well, tell us about the events since last podcast in Nobe's life.
The events, nothing much. Becky and I had a pretty good weekend. What did we do Friday? Friday we had the baby. We went and got pho. And I hadn't had it in a while. It was good. Like there was a while there we were eating it all the time between the phots and stuff, and I was just like tired of it. But they reopened that restaurant, so we got it. It was really good.
Go ahead and plug them.
Mung's Golden Egg Roll.
Mung's Golden Egg Rolls.
Mung's. Yeah. And then and they're in a new place now. It's really nice, fancy, very fancy schmancy. And then Saturday we went to see Chad and Amy at the coffee shop. We got a big bottle of wine for supper.
Like you saw him play, or did you just
we
go
saw
and
them
hang out?
play?
Okay.
We saw them play, and me and her got a big wine. That's when I got in the fight with you on Facebook. We got in a bunch of fights. Like it was weird because my wife and I had all these theology stuff. We even got in a couple of fights together. Because I called her a hypocrite and she got mad.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to go into detail on that because that could get me in trouble. But but we had a good talk, really, actually, because I needed to know, like, there's a part of me that was like, man, does she hate God right now or what? I don't know. Where is she worse than I am right now? And so kind of figuring out, but she's done with church. I can tell you that. I think she's still fine with God and stuff, but she's done with church for a while at least. So I don't know what I'm doing. But anyways, we drank that bottle of wine pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was cranberry.
And now that you're all skinny, it probably affects you a little quicker. Have you noticed alcohol getting you drunk quicker or anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I also notice I get cold a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? Just met that couple pretty much, or?
Yeah, that was kind of our week. I've decided that I don't really live a very exciting life. So I need to go out there and I'll live a little, I think. Like do something crazy. There's things that happen, but I can never remember on the spur of the moment. So I have to get better at like remembering what's happened so we can talk about something that's a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good week. There's no complaints. I've been listening to a couple technical podcasts, which has been kind of nice to get off the whole religion thing for a little while. So it's been nice. I got some suggestions I've been listening to that they've given me. Yeah, he's got a new one out. It actually looked pretty interesting. I just saw a picture of it. I don't remember what it was, but I've listened to a couple of his stuff, and he was interviewing an athlete on one of them, but they weren't super exciting. But
well, the one he did like a thing on his Robcast, like a 5-parter on forgiveness. I'm on the second one. Really good stuff, though.
Is he still doing that podcast on the Bible? Or not the podcast. It's a blog. Like he writes about. He had like number 50 something. Like article.
I don't know if he's still doing that or not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Those were freaking awesome. I really like those a lot.
I continually listen to him and think right now he's the only person I'm listening to right now that's helping me feel better. And I really don't know why people are so harsh on him because he's really right on the money. But whatever. Because you can't help it. That's how they're going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we had a big week. Like you talked about the little pushback you gave me on the whole France thing.
I don't push back. Second of all, I want you to know that the second thing I said wasn't really even aimed at you so much, but I think you took it like I aimed it at you. I was more aiming it at the person that was blaming religion for it. And I'm like,
yeah,
seriously. So anyways.
Yeah. Well, I know.
Say your statement because you're the one that said it. You started the whole thing.
Well, like the Red Cups last week were kind of getting a little overplay. I think the France is kind of overplayed by this point. Overplayed to the point of, not that it's not serious and we shouldn't take it serious, but that a lot of people have been talking about it. But it just kind of underlines something that has like just been driving me crazy, in general about some stuff. So I'm going to read what I posted. Let me pull this guy down here on Facebook, like this kind of like what I want to talk about is why I'm mad about our reaction to France.
And you posted this like the day after because timing's important on this.
Yeah. So the post, it was simple. It was just more people died from hunger in the time it took you to read about those who died in France. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know if I've had as big of a disagreement about anything I've ever said before. Like literally everybody was like against me on this, and it seemed like, and I think people saw it, and I think you saw it, and it was like saying that what happened in France isn't important. Mm-hmm. That's definitely how Rod took it, and a couple other people. I think people are thinking I was like downplaying the importance of that for something else, which I really wasn't, which I'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, a lot of people I didn't really like that too much.
Well, what I would say is for me, it was more not what you were saying, because what you were saying is true. None of them could say that's not true. I think it was more timing for me.
Right. Yeah, and for me, it seemed like the timing was perfect, kind of like what I was going through. So after I had some comments from you and Rod and everything else, I'm just going to read this because I think I took like an hour to write it because I was trying to be like, just make sure I wasn't being an idiot, because the first thing is I don't want to downplay what happened in France. It was anytime anybody dies in that type of manner, it's horrible, and
right.
And I definitely think that we should be supporting them. I think we should be, I think we should be praying about them. I think definitely the focus should be to an extent on, trying to, do as much as we can for him here. So at any rate, this is what I wrote, a couple comments in and getting yelled at people just to try to clear up, why I said that. So again, the original statement was more people died from hunger in the time it took you to read about those who died in France. So here's my response. An evil corporation organized mass murder, killing 129 people. This is tragic. This is heartbreaking. It's unacceptable. A few dozen people decided to intentionally kill people, and it brings the world to tears, as it should. I contrast this idea with 7 billion people, you and me, allowing 21,000 people to die every day. The question I'm hoping people ask themselves is, why does something like the France attacks invoke such a visceral reaction across the world when tens of thousands of people starving to death daily doesn't? When was the last time we changed our profile picture for that? So let's support France. Let's mourn with them, but let's allow this to open our minds. Let's allow this to open our eyes to bigger and more controllable problems. And this is the other part. And maybe we should step down off our high horse and consider who the real terrorists of the world are. Every argument about things like decorations on our coffee cups contribute to things like world hunger. World hunger is a problem that can be solved if we all work together. Cycles with guns cannot.
Yes. Lost you. I was like, I'm on Facebook now trying to see if there was anything else posted after mine.
There wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like I said, I pretty much agree with it. The only thing that got me mad at that was maybe when you said the high horse thing. So I didn't know if you were talking to me or not. So I was going to come down.
No, the high horse was more. Well, I'll get into that here in a second. So I kind of wrote down just some things that get me. So, why the reaction to this whole France is kind of upsetting.
And it obviously hit a nerve.
Right. Yeah. So number one, the media is really behind this. I mean, okay, people died. People, obviously there was something in there where people shot people and people died. But the media, to a large extent, is controlling people's reaction to this whole thing. Like if you look, like just a few hours before, in Beirut, there was an attack that killed 44 people.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. And like absolutely nothing about that.
I did see on Facebook some people posting, like, I actually saw one that had like 6 things on there. A bunch of things happened over the weekend.
Right. Which of course leads me to, and 129 people is a lot of people, but in the scheme of things, it's really not for like an attack like this. Like we hear it all the time. So the question, of course, and maybe I'll ask this question to you, is why did France get so much of the publicity? I mean, why is everybody freaking out about France changing their pictures of that when there were other things that happened? I guess give me your thoughts on that. Why is France kind of
well, I mean, I think it's the tragedy scenario of it all. To be completely honest with you, I haven't read too many of the details of it. I remember, and I did see that there was something in Beirut and some of the other things. Also, I think it's just I basically think it's just the violent terrorist nature of it. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like 9/11. Obviously, it's not as many people. I just don't know if the amount of people matter that much. Right. I mean, Newtown only had 20, but it was tragic because it was kids. It was tragic because it was unnecessary. I think it was a little bit of fear involved because it was so coordinated. I mean, it didn't all happen in one place.
Right.
And I think there were still people being held hostage last I heard too. I don't know. I mean, not now, but at the time. I think that's it. I think for me, the Boston bombing, the marathon bombing, was back home, and literally my niece was in the area of the bombing probably a half hour before it happened. and it always impressed me how other people came about and supported us. I say us, obviously I wasn't there, but I mean it's where I'm from, so I know about stuff that's there. So that's maybe why I take that personally.
Right.
But like to see like Yankee fans do a moment of silence or something like that. And I felt like France supported us during 9/11, and so that's kind of like a mutual respect and support back. Does that make
Right.
sense? That's more how I was feeling. I don't know
Right.
how everyone else was feeling, but that's mostly
Yeah.
how I felt.
Yeah, and I think you hit something right on the head there with the Boston bombing that happened. I think with France is they look a lot more like us, you know. So France is a civilized country, right? It's it's a lot like it is here. You know what I mean?
Well,
They
it's a
look
mecca
more
for
like us.
culture.
Huh?
It's like a mecca for culture.
Well,
I mean, you
yeah,
think
but I
culture,
mean,
you're thinking Paris.
right? Yep. But when we look at something like Beirut, for instance, we don't understand that mindset. So those people are farther from the people that are like us. You know, and I think so when things like that happen, it's like, oh yeah, that's tragic. But I think that, you know, it's so far away and that's so different, it doesn't really sink in. You know, whereas
Well,
France is a civilized country, obviously. I mean, these other ones are too, but they have big cities. They have, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's very much like a, you know, maybe a big city, New York or whatever, in this area. So I think people are able to put themselves in those shoes of people's shoes that were there, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to relate to those people.
well, the other thing is too, Beirut stuff is happening there all the time. Well, in that general vicinity in the Middle East, in that, I mean, it's Lebanon, Israel, in that area, there's always attacks happening. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is like when you mentioned, this is the thing that really got me thinking about the starvation and all this. This has been an issue for a long time. Like, I would have thought by now something would have been done about famine and what you were talking about in Africa and people going hungry and stuff. Because, I mean, think about it. We are the world, right? Why was that song written? It was for, I mean, that was early 80s probably. And it
Right.
was for this very thing. And it's like 20 years later, at least 20 years later,
35.
still an issue. Still. So I don't know, you know, I'm like, is it always going to be an issue? Maybe it's just always going to be there. You know, I don't
Right.
know. But I
Yeah.
hear people say on their feeds, oh, it could be fixed. We could fix it easily. Well, then why haven't we? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's greed, you know, which is kind of part of the, you know, that builds into my whole conversation here is kind of that question, you know. So, okay. So point number 2, that, you know, why this whole thing is really, really bugging me about, you know, our response to France is the over the top Islamophobia is Islamophobia.
Well, I don't like that. That I would agree with you. But
Yeah.
that wasn't in your post.
No. Well, it kind of was though. And this is how it was. And I'm not saying necessarily that all these points are related to what I said on Facebook. But that whole last part of my post, you know, maybe we should step down from our high horse and consider who the real terrorists of the world are. Because that is essentially, you know, it's you and me, it's all of us. Literally, as a world, we're allowing 21,000 people to starve to death. So you're looking at these people that are like, oh yeah, Islam's horrible and all these people are horrible and they're doing horrible things, which they are. But to the extent of 21,000 people starving to death, honestly, it seems like that's a bigger terror issue, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe terror isn't the right word there, but it's the same concept. I mean, it's a lot easier to look at that because, you know, these are people with guns that go out and shoot people. There's no way we can control that. That's going to happen, you know, regardless of how far we come along as society or everything else. But people starving, I mean, that is somewhat easy to fix compared to that, you know, because it's something we can really take some type of action. And it's not like it's just a third world issue, right? We have people here in America that are starving. Like I think Mother Teresa had a cool quote that says, if you can't feed hundreds of people, then just feed one, you know, which is honestly, that's almost as easy as it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get the Islamic part in what you were saying. I have
Right.
since seen it all over the place. And I guess I looked it up. Bill Maher had said something after it. I guess he had taped his show, right? And I'm not a big Bill Maher fan, but he had said something that I was like, wow, that's a true statement about what we've done to them to make them hate us. Basically, it was answering the question, why do they hate us? Well, there's lots of reasons. We pretty much took their oil, took their land by force, gave them prices for their oil that was less than they should get, that kind of stuff. We've waged war on their lands and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, that's really true. But from what the Islam crushing thing, I listened to that second Rob Bell forgiveness thing, and it was about revenge. Really good. If you get a chance to listen to it, I can't reiterate everything they're saying, but he was talking about the story of Samson, how someone did something to Samson, then he wanted revenge, and he hurt them, and then they hurt him back, kind of thing. And he was talked a lot about revenge and how revenge sometimes is just like we get to the point where, oh, someone hurt me, did something really bad to me, and now the only thing I can think to do is do something really bad to them back. Like that's the only. And so he was talking a lot about the best thing we could do is break the cycle of revenge, stop letting the bad thing keep going, keep adding on to the cycle of revenge and bad and hurt and stuff, and be the bigger people. Because I see it all over Facebook after this attack, which I agree with you, is everybody just wants to bomb the shit out of, excuse my language, but the Muslims now, right? That's the answer.
Right.
Is it the answer? And that's Christians too, which Christians should know better because the Bible very clearly talks about loving your enemy.
Right. Yeah, and that's, like I said, I'll get later in the podcast.
I keep going ahead on you, but I'm sorry, I don't know what your agenda is.
Just how we're so selective. We kind of select what we're going to get upset about, but
right.
And then of course we have all these things about the states closing their borders to refugees. Have you heard this?
Someone mentioned it to me at trivia last night, but I didn't quite know what they were talking about.
Because that's like people's reaction, and from a worldview point of view, because what they're saying is we're letting essentially possibly terrorists in. We're not necessarily screening the people that are coming through very well. So we should just close our borders to them. But what kind of bugs me is the whole Christians. There's a lot of Christians that you're seeing getting behind these type of things. So yeah, go bomb them, go blow them up and kill them all. And
of course it was Obama's fault, of course.
Yeah. And then, closing the borders is a good idea. But it's like some of these things are like directly against things that the Bible talks about, as far as like the Bible says a lot of things about respecting foreign people, so essentially like giving them, but like giving them a place to stay if they need a place to stay. And I'll say a little bit more on that later, but that's one of those things that's bugging me. This whole issue with Islam now, it's just blowing up over, and it was just a handful of people, like I don't know, like 18 people or whatever organized this. And what does it have to be to ISIS? What does it have to be considered like an ISIS sanctioned thing? A cell phone call of like 18 people that get together that want to kill somebody, and then it's like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there were French people that did it too, right? That were involved.
Well, I would assume so, but France has a lot of
country.
Yeah. Well, France and Europe in general has a lot of.
I mean, we've had people in here and in England trying to fly over there to join them, right? I don't quite understand that. I don't know where that's coming from,
But at any rate, it's a small operation for the most. ISIS in general is a small operation. They're just really violent, and they're making the whole world, say that this is what Islam is about. It's not. Islam is a huge religion. It's almost as big as Christianity. I think Christianity is still the biggest. And you look at all the countries, I mean, considering how big it is, it all can't be violent. It's just this small little sect of it. So just people are just being ignorant and just stupid when they say things like that. And
well, all this stuff, I agree with you. Our argument stemmed from me just thinking it was bad timing. And I don't think anything has to be mutually exclusive, meaning that you can mourn for the people in France and still mourn for the people that are still dying of famine or being poverty or whatever. I think they both exist. I don't know. We always want to put, I think you were trying. I get now what you were trying to do. You were trying to provoke thought on stuff.
Right.
I just thought it was maybe bad timing. Maybe it was just because where I was at or whatever. But whatever.
Right. All right. So my third point about why this whole thing, our response to this France thing, is driving me crazy, is of course the Christian response. And we kind of hit on some of these things that I was just going. And it seems like this brings out what I'm calling fair weather altruists.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially people that haven't really been supportive of some of the big things like hunger in the world or some of these other things, that now that these 29 people have died, they're doing things like changing their Facebook profile and have all these wise words to say and all the support. And just a really, really small issue. It's big for France and everything else, but the numbers and what happened really isn't that big of a story. And I think it all kind of plays into the whole media and just allowing the media to take control of like your thoughts and push your opinions in one direction or whatever else. And things like, the whole Beirut thing, you essentially get swept under the rug, even though it was just as violent. 44 people died of 2 suicide attacks,
Mm-hmm.
So, so I guess that's just kind of bugging me, because I think people, and I'm not saying everybody like that has to change their Facebook profile or whatever else is like this, but I think they do it and they feel good about themselves and they can move on, and it's just like, I think the thing that got me so fired up about it is essentially that, and then I started doing the research on starving, and like every minute, I mean, this is what the stats are. Every minute, 18 people die of starvation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no worse way to die out there.
Mm-hmm.
I would take a bullet any day, than starve to death. And the majority of these people that are starving are kids, so that's where that statistic comes from, for the people that are reading this. So if it takes you like 7 minutes or whatever that is to read the article about France, more people died in that 7 minutes due to starvation than the whole entire, episode that happened in France. And like I said, the thing that I guess set me off about that is that these issues aren't bigger on a Christian's agenda, where they should be, because that's a huge number. 21,000 people a day.
It's a huge number. I mean,
it's almost unfathomable. Like you can almost not comprehend it. Like
it's almost like I don't know what you're going to do about it.
Right.
Like you're talking to a guy and it's a drop in the frickin' bucket what I'm about to say. But, I used to take our youth group. We used to do 30-hour famine together. We used to raise support for it. We used to do everything we can. But, I don't know what else you can do other than, support certain world vision. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you want people to do, I guess, is what I'm questioning. What's the answer?
All right. Well,
do you have an answer? Do you have a solution? Because most of us probably, because I think most people are not trying to ignore the world hunger thing, but on an individual level, it feels very big. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, great. I mean, we realize that 21,000 people are dying. But, how is Nobe, how is Tim on a day-to-day basis supposed to address that? What can we truly do about it? It was kind of funny. We were sitting in Sam's, like we go to Sundays. On Sundays, we go to Sam's and get like a piece of pizza and a pop. Like for the whole family, we can feed ourselves for like $15.
Yeah.
It's a sweet deal for 5 people or whatever. And you can't do it anyplace else. But I was sitting there, and this was like right after I had these people on Facebook that wanted to kill me, it seemed like. And, thinking about this whole starvation, and I'm looking at Sam's Club. Like, you've been in Sam's Club, right? Or one of those food warehouses type place.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if you were to turn that whole place into like a food making facility, right, that did all hydroponic stuff, I mean, you could produce a ton of food from that, just a ton of food. So if the government starts focusing on building those type of things, like the price of fresh food would go down. The price would go down so more people could afford it, because they eat that. To eat healthy, it's almost impossible to do on like any type of budget. It's just extremely expensive.
Yep.
So that's why we go to processed food and everything else, so it's so cheap. But I was thinking about that concept about, taking a Sam's Club place, and what would that cost? Maybe a couple $1 million, like to build a place like that. Maybe more. I don't know what the prices are, and then I'm seeing like things, like for France, for instance, like the reaction right now, right away. What do they do? They went and bombed ISIS, right? And I'm not saying that necessarily.
I didn't even know if they did. I didn't know that.
They pretty much did it almost immediately. But that type of reaction is, just $2 million gone in just one little strike, and that's, bringing it back to, so I'm saying the money is there to do something like that. We just spend it and just dumb stuff like that all the time,
Oh, dude, the money is easily there,
So that's what it comes down to. There's money, and man, it's driving me crazy. Like we were watching a show, Ness and I, there was it was a show on some channel about people finding homes. Like they give them 3 homes and they say, well, I like this one. I like this one. I like this one. And they pick which one they like the best. And they do like the renovations and everything else. There's a couple from Wisconsin that was getting a vacation home in Hollywood, and I'm just looking at this money and I'm just completely and utterly blown away at how much money that is.
Yeah, but you're going to just make yourself absolutely crazy with that stuff because that ain't changing anytime soon.
I know it's not. I know it's not, but that's the answer to part of that question is, what can you and I do? We can at least hopefully start changing, people's mind and maybe the way they approach stuff. Christians in general, I think if they just, de-weaponized, if Christians quit pushing all these overseas agendas about how we need to, bomb people or have all these things, that's like just an incredible amount of money has been wasted on that, and I think if we can somehow get Christians pushed to the path, the whole Brian Zahn way of
peace.
of peace or whatever else, because I think a lot of what's happening right now is fueled by Christians. You don't
want us to feed the machine anymore, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's very like,
dude, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to have a heart attack over this because I remember a few years ago, it's a very PC thing, but we used to, as a church, God, I would never do this now, but go to a satellite site and see the leadership summit by Willow Creek.
Yeah.
Do a big leadership thing. Well, one year they had Bono. He wasn't there, but it was a pre-recorded thing. And I think there's a baby at the door. Anyways, moving on. The pre-recorded thing from Bono, and I think the number he threw out there was like 2 million or something like that of, to bring clean drinking water to people in Africa. Right. 2 million.
Right.
Yeah, to you and to me, 2 million's a lot, but overall, you're going to tell me we can't scrounge up 2 million as a country to get someone all clean drinking water? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's like, I get what you're saying. It's possible. I think it's definitely possible if we started focusing on stuff to fix this problem. I just don't know if it's ever going to happen.
Right.
And on a small scale, certainly all of us in small scales, like I think I said even on this podcast once that I don't water my lawn, because I'm like, how can I waste water just so my lawn's green when there are people in the other parts of the world that don't have any water to drink?
Right.
And that's why I stopped doing that like 5 or 6 years ago when I heard someone say that, because it's just like, I was like, wow.
Right.
But, that's a drop in the bucket. There's so many other things that I do that are
Right.
I went and bought supper tonight. I didn't have to go buy supper. Yeah, I mean, we can nitpick and nickel and dime us to the rest of our lives, and it won't make a difference.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't do well in any of these things either. I like my beer. I like my date nights with Vanessa. I like all this type of things. I don't know. It's just.
I'm saying if you get frustrated with some, you have to get frustrated at yourself almost too.
Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely group myself in there. I mean, everybody is responsible to one point or another, just about dumb stuff. Just the time spent, like I said, about time spent arguing about just dumb stuff. What you do all the time in the show could be potentially put towards better use of something,
Yeah.
But I just, I don't know. I just wish Christians would get more fired up about that. So every time I see these like 100 people died here, 25 people died here, always in my head, I'm like, there is so much more destruction. And this is just people that are starving to death. What about like people that are just being murdered or whatever else? I don't know how many people die a second, but these are all things like, rather than putting all our focus into 129 people in France, you know, it just seems like we avoid that big issue, you know, maybe because we're part of it.
You know, I think you're right. I mean, I think the one thing you said that's really true probably is we put that, like I did it, I'd put the flag thing up. I was fine with it. I did it for the gay rights thing too when the marriage thing happened. Mm-hmm. Basically, mostly because I don't know how to make one myself, and there was like a little app, and I'm like, oh, it's easy to do, whatever. Just click this thing, you know. But I get what you're saying. What you were saying was that sometimes we just throw stuff up, and that's our way of acknowledging it, and then we're done. I think probably a lot of people are doing that. They're going to acknowledge it for a time,
right?
You know, and that symbol is an easy way to acknowledge it and then move on with your life. Yeah. That's probably true. You know, I have to be honest with you. I mean, how much more have I thought about it? I didn't even know they attacked back, you know. Right. That's how much I've been thinking about it. So,
but you got the flags, so you're covered.
I do have the flag up there. I basically did it because you annoyed me, so I did it on purpose. But.
Yeah. So just one more kind of point with this whole Christian response and why it bugs me that this whole 21,000 people starving a day isn't a bigger issue for us. One thing that's always kind of stuck out to me is that story in Matthew, that one of Jesus's parables where he talks about like God separating the goats from the sheep. You've heard this before. So he says, for I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger or a refugee, right? And you invited me into your home, you know, and his disciples say, oh, well, we didn't do that for you. What are you talking about? And he says that the least of the people that you've done this to, you've done it to me, you know. And then he goes farther and says, you know, the people that have not done this, you know, are essentially enemies. They're not considered my children. And that has always kind of, you know, like I said, story has always kind of affected me with the idea, you know, because those are, when we're looking at starvation versus, you know, people dying and getting blown up in a concert or whatever else. Sure, that's tragic. But as far as where we should be focusing our attention as Christians, almost seems more biblical, you know, under that idea that we're focusing on these people that are starving to death, you know, because it hits pretty much all that. You know, I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you let me into your home. And it seems like the Bible is always, and it's not just this section in there. I mean, it's very many places in the Bible that he's talking about feeding the poor. You know, so from a Christian perspective too, that even makes it worse that this issue is such a big deal and more Christians aren't passionate about it, about trying to come up with a solution to it.
The one thing I thought when we were having our little tete-a-tete was, I think you're being a little bit harsh. I do think that the church is starting to come around more on this issue. Like, I think it was worse like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, as far as ignoring it completely. Because I do think churches are, and I think it's, partly to do with the generations. I think Xers did start, although I will say this. I still say Xers and millennials are still better talkers than doers at this stuff. Like, I've said that a lot. Like, because when we were at Watermarks, I mean, we were canceling service once a month to help people in the community, and everyone thought it was great, and everyone thought it was awesome, but very few people actually came.
Right. And you know, it was so hard to get people to buy into that, you know, because it's action. It's action behind actually being a Christian. So it's more than just going to church. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason Watermarks died, you know, which sounds horrible that, oh my goodness, putting our lives into action caused people to leave the church. And essentially there wasn't enough people that really got behind that. You know, it's just like,
I had a pastor in the town come up, tell me, he said to me, almost a quote here, "That is so awesome that you do that. I would never do that. I would never be able to do that." Because you know what it was? It was it was one giving Sunday of money for the church. Right. You couldn't give it up. Our district superintendent told us to stop. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
and we stopped. And I mean, there was a lot of reasons why we closed, and that wasn't the only one. But you're right. I mean, I think it's getting better, but I think people are still giving it more lip service than due service. I can tell you myself, I went to every one of them practically, unless something else was going on that I had to miss.
Yeah.
And I could tell you straight up, I felt more like that was church than any service I was ever in.
Right. Yeah. And for me, I kind of dreaded it, like doing it. But when I actually did it, and afterwards, like you said, it was like kind of a high. You know, it was like I really did. You know, regardless, it might have just been raking some leaves up or whatever else, but I really did put into action, you know, what Christianity should be about.
Well, you think about it, I mean, how many services do you go to? Services are very, there's two things they hit very hard. One is the mind, because the message, right? It's all mind stuff. And then the worship stuff is for your heart and your emotions. They're trying to stir up your emotions, but there's no like release of that. That's all stuff that you take in, and you're not releasing any of it. You're just taking it in. It's what you get, what you learn, what you feel. And so when we would go out and serve, you know, we did that 1 yard together with a group of people. I don't know if you were at that one, but it was a guy that was dying. I mean, he was in a wheelchair, and he had a disease that's eventually going to kill him, and his wife couldn't keep up with and we went out and we redid their lawn, and we did stuff. We helped when we were partnering with another, it wasn't even a church. It was just another company in town. And it was, I mean, that's really, I finally felt like, I've always been an application person anyways. So I finally felt like the stuff I was learning about the Bible, I was putting into practice. And that means more to me than all the messages I've ever heard.
Right. Yeah.
Or given, for that matter.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, well, yeah, that was my rant about that. And so I think,
we didn't solve world hunger tonight, or
no, we didn't. But I still think that when these things come up, I don't know. I cannot not think that, like, when and especially when Christians put so much focus on things like France. Like I said, let's support them. Let's do what we can, but let's allow that to work as a springboard into more action on what we should really be getting concerned about. Because again, if you went to CNN tonight and you saw a story about 129 people getting shot in LA in the same type of format, and the story right after that was 25,000 people were starved to death in one city, there's no that story in LA doesn't matter anymore. You know, it is such a big thing. And to have that happen every single day, I mean, how do we bring that into reality where we really believe that? Because when I see those numbers, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, that's a lot of people. You know, that's what is that? One every 2 seconds, essentially, was that comes down to.
Some pretty sad statistics if you look them up, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just not one event, right? Not only, you know, so we're looking at that Facebook scenario, or that CNN scenario again, where we had the people in LA died, and then we have these 21,000 people that were starved to death. Wow, that's a big story when you think about it. But it happened yesterday, and it happened the day before that, and it's going to happen tomorrow and the following day. And it's just like,
it's happening right now.
Any of these stories pale by comparison, you know? So no matter how bad something is, 500 people, 1,000, 10,000 people shot, it's still worse that 21,000 people are starving.
Right.
So
my big thing was, I just don't think it's wrong for people to mourn that.
And I never said that. And that's what a lot of people were saying, is I never said that. I just said in the time that you're reading this, there's more people dying of something.
Believe me, it killed me to even semi-agree with Rod. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that a lot. I mean, Rod and I see exact opposite on almost everything, but I was actually in agreement with him. But I mean, now hearing you a little bit, I get what you're going with. For me, it was more timing than anything.
Right. And I would say, like I said, the timing was perfect for this, because it was an example of how we let this get so far out of control, you know. And then, so that was my pushback to your comment about the timing being poor.
I don't like pushbacks. You know, I don't. Can you hear the baby in the background?
It's all right.
You know what?
I don't think
I would feel bad. It's just you and me anyway. It's just shooting the crap right now. But I'd feel bad, but I was listening to the first Rob Bell one, and I could hear a baby in the background the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of cracking me up.
And he's cooler than we are, so.
He is cooler, so if he can get away with it, we certainly can get away with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see anyone on with us.
It's all right. We try to do it late at night for you guys so you can join us. And then you guys won't even join us.
Well, at this point,
You
I
know,
would
we
be
should just
happy
go
if
straight
someone
to
just like sent us a question, suggested a topic, anything. Is anyone alive out there? I feel like I'm on The Walking Dead in real life.
Yeah.
There's no one alive out there.
Or that one cell phone commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We should just start like making fun of people and maybe they'll say something. Like Ashley, dude. Yeah, did you hear Ashley like ran into the wall the other day?
Yeah. Broke his Batman mask.
Yeah. I tell you what's wrong with that guy? Who else haven't we heard from lately? Chris, right? He kind of disappeared on us.
Chris. I see that. Well, here's the thing. When we post stuff, you can see the was seen by. So I know they're still reading the stuff.
Yeah, you punks. We can see your action on here.
I mean, about
like
the
tonight,
only
I see
person is John and Jason are the only two really I'm hearing from.
Yeah.
I used to hear from Ashley all the time.
No.
Just ditched us.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine.
This is what we do. We need to scrap the whole thing. And we need a gimmick.
Yeah.
And we got to come back. We got to come back with like the two swearing ex-Christians.
There you go.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that maybe a format change is coming soon. I'm trying to look up our we had one new follower on Richard Baker.
Yeah. He even posted something.
Yeah. So welcome, Richard.
Sometimes I'm wondering if we shouldn't just talk about that kind of stuff, like we're always fighting to come up with ideas, and they're always presented. I see things on my feed every day we could talk about. They're a little bit more politically motivated, so maybe that sometimes makes me nervous. But like he asked the question about, it was an article about Christians' kids are not well behaved.
Yeah, they're like not. There's no morality difference, right?
Right, or else it's actually worse with Christian kids.
Yeah.
I think I pointed out, I just don't like putting once you become a parent, it's like, dude, raising kids, all the ways you thought you were going to raise them goes right out the door. There's no perfect plan to raising your kids. There just isn't. Every kid is different. They react to things differently, and I'm not going to throw them in a box. Yes, I think that Christians, at least in my past, were very heavy-handed on the discipline part of it. That might have an effect on people, for sure. But overall, I mean, there's very little control you can put over kids. They're going to do what they want to do.
I hear you. Yeah. Luckily, I feel like we've gotten lucky as parents, Ness and I, just because our kids are actually really good kids. We have Alex who's turning 18, and he's pretty functional. I think he'll be able to integrate into the world decently well.
I mean, I subbed and talked to Alex once when he was subbing with me.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good head on his shoulder.
Some parents, regardless of good parents or not, there's just they get stuck with a kid that's maybe a little bit more difficult or whatever else. But I know, parent wise, I can't take any credit for what, Ness and I have done. I mean,
let me ask you this.
For
now we're just snowballing now. We're snowballing because we don't even know if people are ever going to listen. So what the hell? Here's the thing. Name one thing you're glad you did as a parent, and then name one thing you regret doing as a parent. And granted, you still have two little ones that need to become teenagers too, but
yeah. All right. The one of the good things is, I think, like religion wise, especially like, over the last several years, I've never really pushed hard for them to like accept like a Christian faith necessarily, but I've always tried to show like a Christian perspective, so more like I try to live a Christian life rather than doing things like like reading, like make sure you read your Bible and things that like good Christian parents feel like they should do with their kids. I've never really tried to like force that type of stuff down their throat. And one of the cool things about that, I think even Jason was maybe talking about this on our podcast. Yeah. Or one of his articles that he wrote, is to kind of separate that out and let the kids kind of form their own opinions. I mean, for you and I growing up, we definitely had it laid out that this is the right way. And it, almost destroyed both of us to some extent, as far as what we were going to be. And we still fight with that, on a daily basis, which we talk about on the show, a ton of stuff. But I feel like I've lived my life in a way that is Christ-like without them forcing into like a certain theology or whatever else, And I think Ness and I read a book once that really affected me. Just a line that if nothing else fails, your kids will know that you love them, and love, if they feel that love and they know that love, that's the biggest things that's going to stick with them into their adulthood, is that concept. So, and that definitely affected me way back, even when Alex was small, and seeing the adult that he's grown into, I can kind of see some of those qualities in him, that he's not judgmental, he's open-minded, he's just a really good kid, Yeah. So I think that's definitely something. And then even on a couple of episodes ago, I would say the thing that I guess the biggest thing I would say that I failed on, I don't know, failed is kind of a big word, but the thing I maybe regret, and I think that's what you said, is not living more in the moment, as they're like, you're making me get emotional here. It kind of sucks. But like Alex, like I said, is 18 now, and I'm like, he was just a little kid just days ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens quick.
Yeah. And you have older kids yourself. So I guess you understand that too. But, just like dumb stuff. You're trying to watch TV and like Malia's talking to you and you're just like, be quiet, just let me watch this. Give me a couple minutes or whatever, They get to like be Alex's age and you don't have those times anymore, So yeah,
well, that's what I would say. This I can tell you're getting emotional, but there's a part of me that like, well, first of all, I would say it's very similar. Like, even being a pastor, I didn't put a lot of pressure on the kids, and that was probably because so much was put on me, and I didn't want them to have the baggage that I have, that I still deal with today. And so I haven't pushed it. I think they're good kids and they feel it anyways. I hear what you're saying about, I find now that they're getting older that now I can talk to them as adults.
Right.
And like, we went on vacation this August. It was our 25th anniversary, but we actually went on vacation to celebrate Becky's parents' 50th anniversary. And we just had a good time together, almost as adults, They even confessed some bad things they did in high school, which was hard to hear,
right.
That happened. But one of the things I regret was through fear, which is how our parents operated with us. Like the whole, I don't want them to get pregnant. I don't want them, I don't want them to get in trouble. I don't want this, you're so worried about all the things they're going to do wrong that you try to control that through power or through, like fear tactics kind of thing. And now I'm learning the thing I'm learning, and I wish I had learned it a little bit earlier, because I probably made our relationship, at least me and my oldest daughter, a little rough, is that I just got to go with the flow and they have to live their own lives. Now, that doesn't mean they can, when they're younger, that they're going to run roughshod, but I'm just saying, so what? Like she got pregnant out of marriage. Yeah, there are some difficulties that come with that for sure. There's some consequences, but my granddaughter is like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Like, I can't imagine she wasn't here. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's just learning to go with the flow more. And I'm like that anyways, but for some reason, when it's your kids, you can get very, like not that way. You can get really want to control this stuff and you really try to power it through or whatever. And so I get what you're saying, but I do think now as you transition to another part of your life, and you still have little kids, which helps. And as you transition with Alex and I transition with my girls, now it's just our relationship's becoming different.
Right. Yeah. And I'm definitely looking forward to that too. You know, now that Alex is getting older and, you know, and maybe one day is going to be, well, one day we'll hopefully be starting his own family and everything else. I think because I beat myself up about that a lot sometimes. Not a lot, but when I think about it, like I kind of feel bad about it, but I don't think there's anything you can do that will make you feel like you haven't spent, you know, enough time with your kids as you're getting older or whatever else, you know. So regardless of whatever you do, so I guess that's like my encouragement. If other people are like feeling that way or whatever else, I don't think you can do enough stuff where you can get to a point in your life and say that I really did put, you know, every second I could into my kids or whatever else. Just it will. I don't think you'll ever be fulfilled in that aspect, but like you said, looking forward to like them getting older. And I still have a couple young kids and everything else, but it's something important to remember. Yeah,
I just don't think you can ever. It's hard to be the ideal. My wife, I could tell my wife gets one thing that really hurt her was how judgmental people were when we went through some hard times with our oldest daughter, you know, like it was like someone might say, a Christian might say, this is totally possible. I don't know if I've seen it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it. Like, France did something to deserve that. You know what I'm saying? So like our kids are acting up. Well, what sin is in your life that's making this happen? You know what I'm saying? It's like you were a bad parent. So now, no, maybe we were good parents, but maybe my kid needs to learn certain things the hard way. And nothing we could have done will change that.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, I don't know how we got on the parent topic, but it's an interesting topic.
Yep. There you go. Back to red people. You have to post the thing you did the best at as being a parent and the thing you did the worst at. That's this.
And now when you post the thing, there's a question at the end of the podcast. You have to actually listen to it to get it that we want your feedback.
Yep. Nobe will give you one mustache hair. He'll give away one mustache hair to whatever user.
Look how white that is, dude.
I know. I see.
Oh my gosh, dude. Anyways.
Do you have any recommendations for this week? I actually have one, so I'm excited about it.
Well, you start and let me think for a minute.
All right. There's a website called 750 words. So 750words.com. And the idea, it's kind of genius. I've done it twice. I want to do it more. But the idea is you create an account on there and you write 750 words when you first wake up in the morning or sometime like when you're first there. And you pretty much write what's on your mind. You know, most of it is like it could be like negative things. You know, like I forgot to pay the stupid cable bill and now they're going to shut me off. So now I got to check or whatever. You just write kind of what goes through your head. And the idea is when you get that all out, it helps you focus throughout the day on other things because you're not constantly thinking about these things or whatever else. And you write them and they're not really made. You don't ever publish them. So it's completely private. Nobody reads them. You know, it even suggests that you don't go back and read them. You know, it's just this release of information. But I guess if you're able to do it, like if you do it for a certain number of days in a row or whatever else, you get like a little badge or whatever else. But the concept's kind of cool. So I want to do it. And it doesn't take long. It's like maybe 10 or 15 minutes to write, 750 words. You're not worried about editing it. You're not worried about, like I said, anybody reading it. So I want to try this. I have some time in the morning, 10, 15 minutes while I'm taking care of business that you can sit there and write it. So check that out. So it's 750words.com.
It's interesting you say that because that book I'm reading from my friend, one of the exercises he suggests to start your day off is to say the Lord's Prayer before you even get out of bed, just to settle your mind in a positive way. Thought that was interesting, which is easy to do. That'd be easy to do too. I don't really have any huge recommendations. I guess Right now, the show, I like to do modern stuff, but I like TV shows and stuff. The show that I'm really into right now, that I've been watching for years now, but it's really getting good, is The Blacklist. You ever watch The Blacklist?
No, I don't think so.
You should watch that. It's on Netflix. You can at least see the first 2 seasons. This third season's really going on. I couldn't stand James Spader, but he was like born to play this role he's playing in this show.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't stand him beforehand, but he's really, really good in this show. It's just kind of like, it's like Kiefer Sutherland becoming Jack Bauer. You know what I'm saying? It's just
right. Can't have any other Jack Bauers. Yeah.
Right. You can't imagine anyone else as Dexter. You couldn't imagine anyone else as the guy, Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead, as Rick. Couldn't imagine anyone else as Daryl. These are the guys that were made to play these.
Yeah.
Are you caught up on The Walking Dead?
No, we're actually like 2 behind. We're waiting to figure out what happens to Glenn.
Yeah,
that's all I will say, so I don't give any spoilers.
Well, the thing on that is you're going to be waiting. They still have been.
They're not going to wrap it up till the end of the year, I'm sure.
They're doing backstory stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, if you guys want to contribute to the show, let me give you that information. Most of our action happens on Facebook. So you can go to Facebook, look up backtored.com, or just look up Back to Red. We should pop up, just has to be included in our group, and we can include you. Otherwise, you can call and leave us a voicemail message. It's been a long time since we had one of those.
Yeah.
But we'll play that on air, and then we can respond to maybe some of your questions you have, or if you want to yell about France and say how evil I am, because I didn't get enough of that, I'm not quite sure. But 608-618-1842 is the number. You can send us an email at comments@backtored.com. And on Twitter, we're backtoredpc.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts there, Nopester?
I don't think so. There was something, but I forgot about it.
That's
right. I didn't get to my I was supposed to do I did those things for addictions.
All right, yeah.
It's all right. Maybe we'll do them next week. We'll see. But it was I just had some steps laid out of how you can start to get away from it. It's no more than honestly, it's nothing more than the 12 steps for an alcoholic. The only problem is, how everyone has a higher power type thing.
Yep.
With religious addiction, it's tough because of God. Your issue is kind of with God. So I might talk about it a little bit next week.
Yeah, let's do that next week.
Just so they know I didn't forget about it. I had it all written up, but the France thing popped up. So I thought we could go with it.
Yep, sweet. Well, let's do that next week.
Okay. Sounds
all
good.
Right. We'll meet up. All right, guys. So we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, guys.